Mark Levin is, without a doubt, one of the most annoying Fox hosts for a number of reasons. He has the most obnoxious voice I've ever heard in my life, or one of the probably top 5 most obnoxious voices I've ever heard in my life, but also, ideologically, he's gone. I mean, he's in Rush Limbaugh territory, to the point that pretty much nothing he says ever makes sense. It's always dumb. You can reliably go to him, and then whatever he says, assume the opposite is true. So here's a great example of that. He's going to try to attack the COVID relief bill. Now, there are plenty of legitimate criticisms of the COVID relief bill. We've given you those criticisms here. For example, Democrats said you'd get $2,000 checks immediately. They didn't do $2,000 checks, and they didn't do it immediately. They did $1,400 checks, and it was way after the first week or two, which is when the window they promised to send them out. So that's a legitimate criticism. It's a legitimate criticism to point out that they left out the $15 minimum wage. So again, plenty of legitimate criticisms, but he's going to try to attack it from the right, and he face plants.
The greatest progressive bill ever. And it should be, since Bernie Sanders wrote it. And notice Bernie Sanders is celebrating. Now, what's in this bill? $362 billion in direct aid to state and local governments. Okay, so they're paying off mostly blue states and blue cities for being disasters before the virus. And in fact, New York and San Francisco and LA are all celebrating, saying, hey, we don't have a budget deficit anymore. They just blew out our budget deficit. Yeah, think about that. $168 billion to assist educational institutions. No, to assist unions. Why do we need $168 billion when they already have $60 billion sitting there? How much does it cost to distance 6 feet from each other and to wear a paper mask and even to put those plastic things in between people? I don't think it costs $168 billion. $53.6 billion to assist small businesses. I have no idea what that means. $39 billion for child care block grants to states. $27.8 billion for emergency rental assistance and housing vouchers. You know what would fix all this? Capitalism, an open economy. $10 billion for homeowners assistance. You can see this as a massive slush fund. $5 billion for assistance to individuals experiencing homelessness. $92 billion for the Health and Human Services Department. Additional $92 billion. Why? To help subsidize Obamacare. $47.8 billion for testing and contract tracing. Why do we need $50 billion for testing and contract tracing? $7.5 billion for vaccine administration and distribution. What happened to the $4.1 trillion we already spent for that? $6.1 billion for vaccine and therapeutic development, manufacturing, and procurement. $7.6 billion to expand public health workforce. $7.6 billion for community health centers. I thought we had Walmart and we had all these pharmaceutical companies. Why do we need federal distribution centers?
Imagine attacking federal distribution centers in the middle of a pandemic. It's ridiculous. You want to give people vaccines at, federal places in the middle of a pandemic? We got Walmart, bro. That's it. That's all we need. Come on, son. Come on, son. I love this segment because as somebody on the left, I have been very, very critical of Biden and the Democrats and this relief bill. And again, I think it's totally merited and justified. Don't get it twisted. But to see him lay out these things and just have a scornful tone, as if it's obvious that these things he's pointing out are bad. I mean, he made me like the bill more. That's the major takeaway here. So he says $362 billion to the states. Ugh, disgusting. Why is that disgusting? Yeah, the states had to pick up a lot of the slack for the pandemic, and it costs a lot of money, especially when tax revenue is drying up because people were laid off. And I mean, this thing has basically broken the economy. We have a pandemic and a subsequent economic depression. So of course they need relief. The states were losing money through no fault of their own. And so they need to fund, goods and services, and they need to make sure that they can adequately handle the pandemic. So yes, they need money. He frames that as if it's obviously a bad thing that you're giving states money. Why? Why is that a bad thing? Why is that a bad thing? That's a good thing. In fact, a lot of the money, one of the most under-discussed parts of this COVID relief bill, which is crucially important, is that they saved the pensions of over 1 million Americans. People lost their pensions. They were going to get pennies on the dollar. And this bill bailed out the pensions, and now people will get their full pension. That is nothing but positive. You can't say a single negative thing about that. It's like the $3,000 tax credit. That's a wonderful thing. Now, again, another good criticism of the bill is that it's basically like a one-time shot of adrenaline. None of it's recurring. It's not like Social Security. It's not like they did a UBI. They do a one-time payment of $1,400. That's the bad part of the bill, is that it's sort of like a one shot of adrenaline. It's not recurring payments or a recurring child tax credit or whatever. But you can't imagine citing that as if it's a bad thing. It just shows you how ideological he is. And actually, that's not even fair, because it's not ideological. It's just he's a Republican hack. He says $168 billion for education. Ugh. Why is that bad? And then he goes on to say, well, it's not really for education, it's for the unions. That would also be good. Yes, I want workers to be taken care of in this disastrous economy. You don't, Mark Levin? I thought you say you're for regular people. This is what you tell me all the time. $53.6 billion to assist small businesses. And he says, quote, I have no idea what that means. Really? You don't know what that means? You don't know what it means to assist small businesses that are getting walloped as a result of this pandemic? You don't know what that means. Of course you know what that means. You're playing dumb on purpose. Well, he is dumb, but he's also playing dumb. And then he goes through a list: childcare, relief for homeless people, subsidizing Obamacare. There's another legitimate criticism of subsidizing Obamacare because it's a giant giveaway to the health insurance companies. Really, they should be doing Medicare for all. But he's not criticizing it from that perspective. He's criticizing it from the perspective of like, why should the government be involved in healthcare at all, bro? Why are we spending money? That's dumb. He doesn't even know what contact tracing is. He calls it contract tracing. And I wouldn't have attacked him on that, except he said it twice. He didn't say it once. He said it twice. Contract tracing and contract tracing. No, it's contact tracing. Vaccine administration and distribution. He brings that up as if it's a bad thing. Community health centers. He brings that up as if it's a bad thing. I mean, listen, he's a joke. And here's how you know he's a joke. Guys, there were 2 separate previous COVID relief packages. And in fact, I think there's a strong argument to be made that the previous COVID relief packages weren't nearly as good. Like the CARES Act, for example, was a giant giveaway to corporate America. It wasn't bottom-up focused. It wasn't worker-focused. It wasn't regular person-focused. Now, did Mark Levin go out there when the CARES Act was passed or the other COVID relief package was passed and go line by line and say, this is stupid, this is bad, this is dumb, spending money? Oh my God, terrible, wrong. I'm a deficit hawk. I'm against spending money. I hate the debt. I hate the deficit. He didn't say a goddamn word when it was 2 previous COVID relief packages. Why? Because Donald Trump was president and he signed them. The Republicans were in control and they signed them. So all of a sudden, Mr. I'm a fake ideological crusader, he's got nothing to say about government spending. But now, when it's a Democrat, let's go through line by line and look at things that are positive and pretend like they're negative. It's just, again, I don't know how many times I could say this on air. I've been saying it for years now, but guys, who can watch this and think it makes sense and think that this is reasonable and not understand that this guy's a hack of all hacks? I think it's crystal clear. I think this is a great example of it. He somehow made me like this bill more